Imagine this. You've become the absolute richest person in your entire city. We're talking private jets, millions in the bank, the whole shebang. And then you die with nothing. Literally not a single dollar. Today we're going to explore the deeply haunting story of a man named Edward Sinclair. Private jets, sprawling luxury homes, endless millions in the bank. Edward possessed immense physical wealth. I mean, he reached the absolute pinnacle of modern success, and yet, the end result of all of that was just absolute zero. So, this brings us to a really crucial, almost haunting question. How exactly do you die with nothing when you literally own everything? To really understand this mystery, we have to go back to the very beginning. Let's look at Chapter 1, The Hungry Boy. You see, Edward wasn't born into wealth at all. He actually grew up in a tiny, cramped apartment. His father was working 2 exhausting jobs just to keep the lights on, while his mother stayed up late into the night stitching clothes. Sometimes they barely had enough food for a single meal. And at just 12 years old, Edward made a promise to himself. He said, "When I grow up, I'll never be poor again." But you know, that childhood trauma, it morphed into this singular, incredibly dangerous obsession. He genuinely believed that money was going to solve absolutely everything. But, as we'll see, he was so very wrong. Which leads us to the next chapter of his life, the price of success. At age 22, he started his own business, and his routine was brutal. 4 hours of sleep a night, no weekends whatsoever. He skipped birthdays, missed holidays, you name it. But 5 years later, the very same people who used to laugh at him were suddenly begging him for jobs. By the time he had 40, he owned factories, luxury hotels, massive office buildings. Magazines were literally crowning him the king of wealth. But what nobody seemed to notice was that the king of wealth always ate his dinner entirely alone. That extreme isolation soon fractured his personal life completely. When his wife finally left him, her parting words were absolutely devastating. She told him, "You gave your life to your business, but never to your family." Soon after, his son stopped calling. His daughter even got married without so much as inviting him to the wedding. So how did he cope? Well, Edward simply bought another company. He tried to bury all that emotional pain under just empty acquisitions. More money, more buildings, more so-called success. But the real tragedy here was that all of this just resulted in less life. Now we arrive at a much darker chapter, the last night. Fast forward to age 82. 47. That is the staggering number of rooms in his massive, sprawling mansion. The walls in that place were covered top to bottom in prestigious awards, but if you walk through those massive halls, you wouldn't find a single family photo. His phone just never rang. There were 0 visitors. Just total silence. And out of those 47 grand, luxurious rooms, only one was ever actually used. It was in that single lonely room that his heart suddenly gave up. The richest man in the entire city died completely alone. And that brings us to the shocking discovery. About a week after his death, his lawyers gathered to sort through his massive estate. Now, they fully expected to find billions of dollars, maybe hidden gold, offshore accounts, the usual billionaire stuff. Instead, they opened his final letter and found just one handwritten sentence. It read, "I spent my whole life collecting things and forgot to collect moments." Attached to that letter was a list of his final regrets. Things like, play with my son, dance with my wife, call my mother more often, watch one more sunset, forgive my brother, laugh more, love more, live more. It's just so heartbreaking because these incredibly simple human experiences were the exact things he traded away for his fortune. And right at the very bottom of this list, he wrote his final, crushing conclusion. "I became rich in everything except life." His emotional bankruptcy was absolute and complete. This is what it truly means to have a death with nothing. Because think about it, when your last breath finally comes, you just can't keep your money, your giant mansion, your luxury watch, or your fancy title. None of that crosses over with you. The only things that truly remain are your memories, the love you shared, and the lives you touched. Edward had achieved absolutely everything physical in this world, but in the end, he possessed nothing that actually mattered. So, let me ask you something. If today was your very last day on Earth, would people remember how much money you made, Or would they remember how much love you gave? The richest person isn't actually the one who owns the most stuff. It's the one who leaves behind the most beautiful memories. Money can certainly buy you a massive house, but it can never ever buy a home. So, what are you choosing to collect today?